Всем здравствуйте. У меня не раздвигается на экран конференция.
Здравствуйте, сейчас разберемся с этим.
У меня узкая колонка, вид конференции, а как ее раздвинуть, мне почему-то не получается. Кратность масштабирования вписать в окно, вот исходный размер почему-то не вписывается. Узенькая колонка. Нашла.
У вас получилось?
Да, получилось.
Хорошо.
Угу. Да, нормально.
Давай спросим.
Добрый день.
Здравствуйте.
Мы бы хотели вопрос задать, Александр Анатольевич.
Да. Скажите, у меня доклад в 9, ну, это в 11:20. Вот. Вы нам как тогда дадите ссылку, чтобы вы видели наш экран или как?
Я вам разрешу запустить демонстрацию экрана.
Да,
Мгм.
да.
То есть все нормально, да? Вот вы нам дадите такой доступ.
Да, конечно.
Мгм.
А начало по расписанию будет на доклада в 11:20?
Ну, вообще планировалось, да, но мало людей подключилось. Сейчас, возможно, еще немножко подождем
Мгм.
и начнем.
Просто
А по-моему, у меня в 11:10.
нет, у нас второй доклад, а первый доклад, он уже вроде как должен идти, нет? Вот, это ж 10:40,
Ой,
11:20.
извините, вы пермское время говорите, извините, I'm sorry.
Ну да, московское время это 8:40, 9:20.
Извините,
У нас
у нас
тоже
9.
московское время.
У нас 9.
Ну и у нас тоже. То на первую страницу поставь.
Доброе утро, коллеги. Меня слышно?
Здравствуйте, да, слышно.
Да, все хорошо.
Так. Кто у нас командует сегодня?
Ну, вот должен быть Петр, ждем. Петр Яковлев. Так, ну у нас, похоже, пока русскоязычные дни, поэтому мы можем еще немножко на русском поговорить.
Александр Петрович, у меня сколько?
Минутка есть.
10 минут перерыва, которые я сделал в занятиях, чтобы поприветствовать. Или меня освободите, поскольку Сергей Васильевич здесь есть, который говорит лучше меня. Александр Петрович, это вопрос был.
Я думаю, все-таки начать стоит вам немножко рассказать. Правда, нам, наверное, нужно еще дождаться докладчиков. Пока я не вижу, чтобы у нас докладчик подключился.
Пока ничего нет.
Докладчики одни готовы.
Да,
Добрый день.
одни есть докладчики. Боженюк, второй доклад.
Все замечательно. Так, ну, Андрей Геннадьевич, может быть, тогда начнем? Где у нас Петр Яковлев, это, конечно, вопрос. Петр?
Он вот сейчас мне написал, что у него ссылка не работает.
Опа. То есть все зашли, а у него не работает.
Если я ему попробую все продублировать, но, может быть, у него приложение не установлено, из-за этого проблема.
Вау.
Из браузера это всегда можно войти даже без приложения. Так что...
Я ему отправила.
Ну, я думаю, Андрей Геннадьевич пока, может быть, начнет с Сергеем Васильевичем. Просьба. Вот. Екатерина Владимировна, если что, вы подстрахуете, можно вас попросить?
Я не сильно готовилась, но я постараюсь.
Спасибо большое.
Коллеги, мне просили буквально 2-3 слова сказать.
Да,
я с удовольствием потом присоединюсь к, соответственно, к тому, чтобы послушать. Почему? Потому что я вот темы посмотрел, они чрезвычайно интересные, кстати, и интересные, и полезные и нашим коллегам, в том числе, кто занимается профессионально геоинформационными технологиями. Кстати, очень рад всех видеть. Второй день работы конференции, международной конференции. Вчера уже отмечали, и на сайте было написано о том, что мы впервые такой большой сборник издали в уровне, соответственно, Scopus. Хотелось бы, чтобы это все было продолжено. Кстати, вот та география выступающих, которая здесь представлена, тоже очень внушает большое уважение. Если, скажем, в Южном федеральном университете, кстати, вот довелось побывать, то, к сожалению, в Баку пока нет. Кстати, это вот будет, может быть, для меня неким таким точкой притяжения, после чего захочется в Азербайджане все-таки в Баку побывать. Как доктор географических наук обязан сам все посмотреть, пощупать. Так что, коллеги, кстати, очень рад, что она состоялась, да, в таком гибридном формате, эта конференция. Кстати, очень надеюсь, что она будет взаимовыгодной и полезной. Большое количество вопросов будет задано и обсуждено. Вот все, что могу пожелать нам всем, кстати, в это непростое время, которое мы переживаем. Спасибо.
Спасибо большое. Так, ну, я тогда продолжу. Вообще, конечно, когда мы задумывали и проводили первый форум в 2016 году, и, в общем-то, был достаточно локальный, мы его вокруг математики строили, связан был со столетним юбилеем нашего университета. Вот, но так получилось, что, замахнувшись очень амбициозно на тему «Глобальные вызовы 21 века», мы попали в точку, и эти вызовы нас догоняют. И в 2016 году там тема, скажем, возможных пандемий была теоретическим вопросом, а сейчас мы уже живем в этом мире и вынуждены проводить совсем не так, как мы планировали. Вот, а с другой стороны, очень замечательно, я очень рад, что этот форум приобретает все более широкий размах с точки зрения и тематики, и вопросов, которые выясняется, что на самом деле мы действительно, занимаясь глобальными проблемами, оказываемся в ситуации, когда вот эта междисциплинарность, значит, является тем выходом из многих тупиков, которые возникают в отдельных локальных науках, значит, и тех выходов, которые нам позволяют, может быть, более оптимистично смотреть на эти глобальные вызовы, которые сейчас перед нами стоят. Да, значит, я бы хотел очень сильно поблагодарить новую команду, которая сейчас складывается. Я думаю, что они внесут это вот и к Наталье Петровой, и Катерине Исаевой, и Александр Петрович вот проявляет себя, работа в таком новом качестве очень активно. То есть большое спасибо, потому что очень приятно, когда это, так сказать, мероприятие, оно продолжает жизнь, оно продолжает жить, когда появляются новые люди, новая кровь. Вот. Ну и то же самое касается и участников, потому что мы расширяем свою географию, появляются новые, значит, у нас специалисты, новые ученые участвуют. Очень надеемся, что эти связи будут достаточно постоянные. Мы будем больше обмениваться, потому что наряду с проектчиками между дисциплинами, которые мы форумом пытаемся разрушить, мы еще и пытаемся разрушать, значит, те границы, которые у нас возникают между регионами, между вузами, между факультетами, между странами, поскольку проблемы действительно глобальные, они касаются всех, независимо от того, где мы находимся, чем мы занимаемся, какой профессией. Поэтому вот, мне кажется, задача ученых, миссия ученых состоит в том, чтобы находить решения для тех проблем, которые существуют, видеть проблемы, которые, может быть, общество еще не осознает, но ученые как передовой отряд, как наиболее квалифицированные и думающие, и вот среди ученых, гениев существенно больше, чем во всем остальном мире. Поэтому и задача прогнозирования того, что происходит, и предложение, значит, по тому, как будет развиваться дальше человечество, является вот для меня такой сверхзадачей, которая в этом форуме существует. Поэтому я желаю большого успеха в вашей работе. Форум – это многопрофильное, опять же, мероприятие, то есть конференций и мероприятий много, но вот сегодня у нас пленарное заседание. Вот, значит, я рад, вот у нас Петр Яковлев подключился, значит, вот, наверное, слово ему надо передавать, да? Кто у нас режиссер сегодняшнего мероприятия?
Петр. Петр ведущий. Петр here, we can start.
Да, добрый день. Так, начинаем, да?
Да, я, с вашего позволения,
Так.
отключусь, потому что у меня занятие.
Так, ну, пожалуй, тогда приступим. Hello, everybody. My name is Peter Yakovlev. I'm going to be doing moderation for today's presentations. If at any point, то есть в любой момент, if you have any questions, есть какие-то вопросы, need to translate something, что надо перевести, что-то непонятно. If at any point you don't quite understand some of these questions, you need to repeat something, or you just kind of want to get the point across, you can just ask me to translate, and I can translate kind of, you know, English to Russian, Russian back to English. And yeah, just refrain from asking questions right in the middle of the presentation. If you do have something, then just kind of write it down. If there's any kind of misunderstanding, like, you know, you didn't quite understand what somebody was trying to say, just write it down, and then at the end I can translate that. So yeah, в любой момент, если что-то не понимаем, если слишком быстро кто-то говорит, если я что-то непонятно сказал, то можно просто записать и в конце вот доклада, получается, меня попросить как-то это пояснить лучше или передать вопрос как раз докладчику. Так вот, начинаем тогда. Our first speaker is going to be Alexander Bozhenюk. He's the professor of the Southern Federal University. He's also a member of the Dissertation Council, professor of Institute of Computer Technologies and Information Security, and the officer of Southern Federal University and executor, of the project Methods and Means of Decision Making on the Basis of Dynamic Geographic Informational Models. This professor has more than 80 different publications on the topics of computer science, mathematics, decision sciences, physics and astronomy, medicine, social sciences, biochemistry, genetics, and even molecular biology and chemical engineering, with more than 210 citations. So kind of a lot of different stuff. His research interests include mostly artificial intelligence, decision-making, fuzzy graph, fuzzy hypergraph, geographic information systems. And most contributed topics are as follows: fuzzy graphs, international accounting standards, accounting policy, evacuation, dynamic traffic assessment, traffic simulation, resource constrained project scheduling, the scheduling problem, and critical chain. So a very well-rounded and knowledgeable person in their field. So yeah, I guess take it away, Professor Bozhenюk.
Ну, смотри. Dear ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to present our work, decision making based on fuzzy graph model. But I don't speak English well. Therefore, allow me to make this report to my author, Evgenia Gerasimenko. She is the author of some articles and monographs devoted to fuzzy graphs and fuzzy networks. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Dear colleagues, let us start our presentation. The topic is decision making based on fuzzy graph models. So nowadays, science and technology are characterized by complex processes and phenomena for which complete information isn't always available. In such cases, mathematical models of various types of systems containing elements of uncertainty have been developed. Most of these models are based on the extensions of the general set theory, namely fuzzy sets. The concept of fuzzy set was introduced by Lotfi-Zadeh, as is presented in the first reference, as a method of representing uncertainty and fuzziness. The fuzzy graphs theory is finding an increasing number of applications for modeling real-time systems where the level of information inherent in the system depends on different levels of accuracy. The original definition of a fuzzy graph was based on fuzzy relations by Lotfi-Zadeh, it is Article 3, and in Article 4, fuzzy analogs of several basic graphical concepts were proposed. In the 5th and 6th articles, the notion of fuzzy graph complement was defined, and some basic operations on fuzzy graphs were studied. Let us start with basic definitions. A fuzzy graph G is a triplet where V is a finite and non-empty vertex set, sigma is a fuzzy subset of V, and mu is a fuzzy relation on Cartesian product V. The fuzzy graph is presented in the slide where membership functions are assigned to both vertices and edges. So note that according to conventional definition, nodes and edges are fuzzy. This slide shows our agenda for the day. We are going to present the following tasks which have been solved using fuzzy graphs. They are optimum allocation of service centers, coloring method, and a dynamic flow model for evacuation models. So let us start with the first problem. It is optimum allocation of service centers in fuzzy transportation networks. Let us start with basic concepts and definitions. A pair G, where G is a fuzzy graph, is called a fuzzy graph of the first kind, where set X is a set of vertices and set U is the set of directed edges with predefined membership functions, mu. The path of fuzzy graph fuzzy L is a direct sequence of fuzzy edges from the vertex xi to the vertex xj, in which the final vertex of any edge is the first vertex of the next edge. The conjunctive strength of a path is defined as conjunction of the particular membership functions. Let L be the fuzzy L, a family of the fuzzy graph paths from the vertex xi to xj. The reachability degree of vertex xj for vertex xi can be considered as disjunction of particular reachability degrees. And according to the slide, we can find the reachability degree from the node xi to x5, and it is defined as maximum between 0.7, 0.3 and 0.6, 0.8. So we should choose between two maximum values, and it is 0.6. There are three strategies of selection service centers. The first one, we came out from any vertex of service centers Y and reach all vertices of subset X difference Y. The second, we come out from any vertex of service centers Y, reach all vertices of the subset X difference Y, and come back to the start vertex. And the third one, we come out from each vertex of the subset XY and reach some vertex of service center subset Y. And we are dealing with the second strategy. Let us turn to basic concepts which are devoted to vitality degree of fuzzy graph. The vitality degree of a fuzzy graph is defined as conjunction of reachability degrees of the graph. And you see that tau is the reachability degree from vertex xi to xj. It is defined as that there is a path between any two vertices of the graph with the reachability degree at least 0.6 if we consider the particular slide, the particular graph which is represented in the slide. Let K be service centers placed in the vertices of subset Y, and tau is the reachability degree of vertex xi to xj. Value V sub fuzzy G is called the vitality degree of fuzzy graph G, which is served by K centers from vertex set Y. The problem of the allocation of K service centers of the fuzzy graph is reduced to determining such a subset which is the maximum of these values. Values V sub fuzzy G signify that we can place K centers in graph G so that there is a path from at least one center to any vertex of the graph G and back. The conjunctive strength of the graph will not be less than this value, I mean V sub fuzzy G. So, basic properties of vitality degrees. The first one, vitality degree of the fuzzy graph when serving by a single center coincides with the vitality degree of the graph. Then vitality degree of the fuzzy graph when serving by n centers equals to 1. And the more service centers, the greater possible vitality degree of the graph. Let us turn to the method for finding service centers. Let Y be a subset of vertices in which the centers are located and the vitality degree equals to V. To each vertex xi from the set X, we assign a Boolean variable pi, and then to this expression tau, we assign a fuzzy variable xi. Considering the expression 1, we, for all possible values I and j, and substituting the particular values, we obtain the correct expression phi sub v. Then we open the parentheses and reduce similar terms by using the absorption rules. And expression 2 can be written in the following form. If further simplification in the formula 4 based on the rules 3 is not possible, then each disjunctive term I gives the minimal subset of vertices with vitality degree vi. So we have a task. How can we modify 2 from 2 to 4? To do it, we can represent 2 as 5. So the modified method. We should assume and assign each variable pj a binary vector pj. It means that, considering our example, 0.6 and p2 is equal to 0.6 multiplied by vector 0, 1, 0. 0.4 and p3 is equal to 0.4 times vector 0, 0, 1. So then it means the minimization operation is equal to, as presented in the slide, 0.6 times vector 0, 1, 0 and 0.4 times 0, 0, 1 is equal to 0.4, 0, 1, 1. And if the vector 0, 1, 0 is less than 0, 1, 1, it means that 0.6 times vector 0, 1, 0 or 0.4 times 0, 1, 1 is equal to 0.6 times 0, 1, 0. That equals the rule of absorption in the fuzzy expression, 0.6 and p2 or 0.4 and p2 and p3 is equal to 0.6 and p2. Then it is the description of the proposed algorithm, which is represented in the slide. And let us turn to the numerical example. Let us consider a railway network limited by the stations Novosibirsk, Kemerovo, Barnaul, and Novokuznetsk, which is represented in the particular figure. The fuzzy graph of this railway network obtained from the GIS object land is represented in the next figure. Here, the fuzzy graph vertices correspond to the network railway stations, and the fuzzy graph edges correspond to the railway between the stations. The membership functions of the edges are calculated according to the characteristics of the railway. For example, if the period of the maintenance of the railway is less than 15 years and the length is less than 20 kilometers, the membership function is equal to 0.9. It is necessary to find the allocation of service centers. For the sake of simplicity, let us present all the subgraphs, strong connection degrees of which equals to 1 by 1 vertex. As a result, we will receive the aggregation fuzzy graph, which consists of n vertices, which is represented in the particular slide. Then we turn to the matrix, the vertex matrix for this graph, and it has the following form. The second matrix is the accessibility matrix, which is represented as the matrix M. So following these operations, we get the particular equation 2, which has the form phi. And following the steps of the algorithm, we get the particular matrices. And finally, expression 4 has the following form. The fuzzy set of vitality is defined as represented in the slide. The fuzzy set of vitality also indicates that, for example, there is no need to place 3, 4, or 5 centers. In this case, the greatest vitality degree will be the same as in the case of 2 centers. The fuzzy set of vitality defines the following optimum allocation of the service centers. For example, if we have only 1 service center, then we can place it at any vertex. For example, Inskaya. Here, the degree of service equals to 0.4. If we have 2 service centers, we should place the centers, for example, into vertices 1 and 7, Inskaya and Kemerova. In this case, the degree of service equals to 0.6. If we have 6 service centers, then we must place the centers, for example, into vertices 1, 3, and 4, 5, 6, and 7, Inskaya, Barnaul, Novokuznetsk, Yurga 2, Surzenka, and Kemerova. In this case, the greatest vitality degree equals to 0.7. And finally, we have 9 service centers. We should place them into all vertices. The greatest vitality degree equals to 1 in this case. The following slide gives us the reference list according to the particular proposed method. And then let us present the second algorithm, Caloran method of fuzzy graph with the greatest separation degree. We color each vertex X of fuzzy subgraph by one of k colors and consider subgraph. Here, Xi is a subset of vertices which have I color. Then value alpha defines the degree of internal stability of the subset Xi. Separation degree of fuzzy subgraph G with k colors is called a value L. And you can see the particular example of coloring if we have 2 colors, but this the difference, we have the difference of colors, which is represented on the slide. In the first case, we have 2 colors and the separation degree is equal to 0.8. And in the second case, again, we have 2 colors, but the coloring principle differs. It means that separation degree is equal to 1. We associate with fuzzy graph a family of fuzzy sets R. Here, the value L determines the separation degree of subgraph when coloring in particular k colors. A fuzzy set gamma is called a fuzzy chromatic set of fuzzy graph G if the following condition A sub G is a subset of gamma is performed for any set. Chromatic set of graph G determines the highest degree of separability in the color of its vertices by 1, 2, so forth to n colors. Let dash psi is a subset of X, it is any vertex or subset of fuzzy graph. An internal stability degree of dashed psi is called alpha, which is equal to 1 minus maximum of mu. Subset of a graph G is called a maximum internally stable set with the degree alpha if the following condition is true. And the fuzzy set gamma is the fuzzy chromatic set of subgraph G if and only if it does not make that k maximal internal stable sets, phi1, phi2, and phi k with the degrees of internal stability, and moreover. And 3 conditions are valid here. It is minimum of the particular alpha's union of psi gives us X, and there is not other family psi1, psi2, psi for which this minimum operation and the condition 2 is true. And then it is the algorithm for finding fuzzy chromatic set, which is represented in the slide. Then method for determining of all maximum internally stable sets. Let psi is the maximal fuzzy internally stable set with degree of internal stability. To each vertex we assign a Boolean variable pi, and to this expression alpha we assign fuzzy variable xi. Considering this expression 1, for all possible values I and j, we obtain the valid expression of phi with sub psi. Then again, we should open the parentheses and reduce the similar terms by using the absorption rules. Then the expression 2 can be rewritten as represented in the slide. And the following property is valid here. Each disjunctive member, the totality of all vertices corresponding to the variable missing in the totality, gives a maximal internally stable set with the obtained degree of internal stability alpha. And let us consider a numerical example. We have a fuzzy graph, which is represented in the slide, and the following expression 2 can be rewritten in the form phi with sub c, which is equal to not pa plus not pb plus 0, 1, which is represented as, opening the brackets, finally we get the particular formula, which is equal to 1. And if we interpret it, we get fuzzy subgraph, which consists of 13 maximal internally stable sets. Starts from C1 to C13 with degree of stability 0.3, 0.4, 0.6, and 1. Then we construct the matrix F, which consists of elements R, which are either alpha or 0. For the subgraph matrix F, we can represent the previous formula by this matrix, which consists of the particular columns, which are assigned to values, the particular values of C. And here we have the rows A, B, C, D, E, and F. The task of finding fuzzy chromatic set gamma is the task of finding the covering of all vertices by K maximal internally stable sets with the maximum of the volume minimum from alphas. We rewrite this particular expression of the covering, then open the brackets and reduce the similar terms using the equation 3. It means that we can rewrite the expression as it represented in the formula 5 and 6. So, in conclusion, we get that if k is equal to 2, then the covering defines the columns Psi5 and Psi9 with the degree L2, which is equal to 1, and 0.4, which is equal to 0.4. If k is equal to 3, then the covering defines the columns Psi2, Psi3, and Psi5 with the degree L3, which is equal to 1. And we get the particular chromatic set. The fuzzy chromatic set also indicates that, for example, there is no need to use 4, 5, or 6 colors. In this case, the greatest separation degree will be the same as in the case of 3 colors. The next slides give us example of, and this is particular question that is represented in the following article of the colleagues, which is called Radio Fuzzy Graphical Assignment of Frequency in Radio Stations. And it is an example of fuzzy graph coloring using for the analysis of FM radio stations in the city of Calcutta. These all radio stations in Calcutta, and it is the particular fuzzy graph with each membership value of radio station and real frequency. The reference list, which is devoted to this topic, is represented in the slide. And then let us turn to the last task. It is maximum dynamic flow model for hesitant fuzzy evacuation with intermediate storage at nodes. Evacuation is one aspect of emergency process, can be simply defined as the removal of residents from a given area that has been considered as hazardous to a safe one. Evacuation problems may arise in different types of systems, such as buildings, cities, or regions, or transportation carriers like train, ship, or airplane. The system structures, like population and the behavior of the particular residents, are essential tasks in the evacuation network. So approaches which are used to model evacuation problem mainly come from network flow problems, as represented in this slide. We are going to deal with macroscopic models, which are mainly based on optimization approaches and consider occupants as a homogeneous group where only common characteristics are taken into account. Since the time is a decisive parameter in the evacuation process, most macroscopic approaches are based on dynamic network flow models. The common idea of these models is to represent a building and the attributes of the building's component in a static network. So our goal is to turn from dynamic network with given parameters to a static time-expanded representation. The modeling of evacuation over time is then done in a dynamic network with given parameters, which is the time and then turn to time-expanded version with the particular capacities and time parameters. The modeling of evacuation over time is then done in dynamic network, which is the time expanded version of the original network, and the network flows correspond to evacuation process. In the representation of a building using a static network, nodes may represent rooms, lobbies, or intersection points, while arcs can be used to model corridors and doorways. So the supply of a source node is given by an estimate of the number of evacuees and the location that the node represents. And the building exists or safety locations that might be considered as the final destination of evacuees movement. They are considered as sink nodes. Besides arc, nodes also can have capacities as represented in the slide, which are the upper bound of the number of evacuees simultaneously allowed to stay in the node. Arcs have other attributes such as flow capacities, travel times, which can be given in the table. The arc flow capacity is the upper bound of the number of evacuees per unit time that can be traversed the arc. The travel time is the time need to travel from one node to another. This travel time is one of the important components that must be considered. During the evacuation process, the connection between two positions, two nodes, may only be temporary, for instance, due to blocking, fire, or smoke. And in this case, the arc that represents the connection must also be temporary. When solving evacuation problems, it is not always possible to accurately set the parameters of the network. Sometimes they can only be estimated in a certain interval or set in a linguistic form, because they are subject to constant change due to changes in environment, human activity, and other factors. In the process of the decision-making, an expert doesn't always have the ability to operate precise values and concepts due to some factors, the character of evacuation, the need for quick response, the lack of statistical data, and so forth. Fuzzy logic and its extensions are model tools to use this uncertainty inherent in evacuation emergency tasks. Initially, fuzzy sets introduced by Lotfi Z in his seminal paper were used to tackle this problem. Since that, much research has been conducted in developing extensions of fuzzy sets. Among them, there are interchanistic fuzzy sets, type 2 fuzzy sets, fuzzy multisets, hesitant fuzzy sets, and a lot of extensions. Each type has its own peculiarities. For example, interchanistic sets deal with the membership and non-membership degrees, as well as indeterminacy degree. Type 2 sets represent membership degree of an element to a set in the form of a fuzzy set. Fuzzy multisets permit the repeating elements, and hesitant fuzzy sets allow a set of possible values of a membership function. Evacuation strategies are mainly based on the flow models and algorithms. Transporting the maximum number of evacuees from the hazardous zone to the safe is connected with the maximum flow finding in the graph. The task of the transporting the evacuees to the safe zones within the shortest time is based on the earliest arrival tasks. Transportation of the evacuees to the shelters so that the priority order of these nodes is given is based on the lexicographic flow models. Dynamic evacuation tasks allow taking into account the non-instantaneous passage of the flow. And in addition, dynamic evacuation models effectively simulate real emergency because they consider transit arc capacities that can vary depending on the flow departure time. During evacuation, the main goal is to transport the maximum number of aggrieved from the dangerous area to the safe shelter, considering arc capacities. So to convey the maximum dynamic flow with intermediate storage to the sink, the priority order of intermediate nodes must be defined. Conventional methods suggest transporting along the longest path. The longer the path, the safer the transportation is. However, this approach doesn't consider many details of evacuation, such as reliability, cost, capacity, and therefore. So the methods which are based on fuzzy hesitant evacuation can be considered. So there are many different aggregation operators, like hesitant fuzzy ordered weighted operators, hesitant fuzzy ordered weighted geometric operators, and so forth. We are going to deal with aggregation on fuzzy hesitant elements, which is used as an auxiliary method for calculating the priority order of shelters to gain extra flow, leaving the source that can be additionally stored in intermediate nodes, and hesitant fuzzy hybrid averaging aggregation operator also will be used for this purpose. So hesitant fuzzy sets, which were proposed in 2009 by Torre and Narukava, permit the membership having a set of possible values, where hesitant fuzzy element represents the set of values in the interval 0, 1 that denote the possible membership degrees of the element X to the set A. Let X be the cut set of any cut C such that XC is the node time pair which belongs to A. The minimum ST cut capacity is lambda, which is equal to minimum of the capacities. And the maximum value leaving the source is given in the equation 1, which should exceed the particular value lambda minimum in order for the maximum flow with intermediate storage to exist. Thus, the objective function maximizes the outflow from the source in terms of intermediate storage at nodes. And equation 3 is capacity constraint for each node and time period. So the flow should be more than 0 unless the particular capacity along this arc. Let us represent the particular algorithm for hesitant fuzzy emergency decision-making for the maximum flow evacuation with intermediate storage at nodes. First of all, we should determine the priority order of terminals based on the hesitant fuzzy hybrid arithmetic averaging operator. We construct the hesitant fuzzy decision matrix, then apply this operator to calculate hesitant fuzzy elements for the alternatives. The intermediate nodes of the network are alternatives in the problem statement. For a collection of hesitant fuzzy elements, the aggregated value based on hesitant fuzzy hybrid averaging operator is calculated according to the formula. Then we should compute the scores S of hesitant fuzzy elements, and then we can compare particular elements. We calculate the priority of alternatives by ranking the elements, and give the first priority to the sync team, second priority to the intermediate node Xi with the highest rank among the others, and with node capacity which is strictly more than 0, and continue up to the last intermediate node. Then we should find the maximum flow in the constructed time-expanded network, considering the given priority order of nodes, and construct the time-expanded network for the maximum dynamic flow with intermediate storage at nodes. First of all, we should turn to the residual network by making a copy of each node at each time period and modifying the initial node Xi with the limited capacity, which is equal to Q. Then define the modified G so that each node Xj, which belongs to the fuzzy graph, corresponds to the node time pairs, which are connected by the arc capacity, which is equal to capacity of the node. The arc that is incident to Xj plus corresponds to each arc that is incident to Xj. Then let the set of Xji minus theta with Q more than 0 be the set of dummy shelters. Each artificial shelter corresponds to the particular node Xi, thus it has the same priority as the node Xi. We introduce a super sink and connect each time expanded dummy shelter along with the initial sinks at each time period to the time expanded set of super sinks. Find the augmenting trails in the residual network, considering the standard rule of defining the flows. If the flow is less than a capacity in the modified graph, we should represent the particular task, and we get U minus Xi. If it is more than 0, strictly more than 0, then the capacity equals to flow. If the trail exists, we return to the step 2.3. If there is no trail to the sink, the maximum flow is found, and we should turn to the step 2.4. Then convey the corresponding value of the flow depending on minimal fuzzy residual capacity. Find the augmenting trails to the dummy shelters in the performed priority order by the step 1. If the trail exists, we return to the step 2.3. If there is no trail, the maximum flow to the sink T is found and turn to the step 2.6. We modify the evacuation flow values according to the rule 1. For the arcs in the opposite direction between the pair of nodes, we modify the flow by the value Xi minus sigma and return to the step 2.4. If vice versa, for directed arcs between the nodes, we modify the flow Xi and increase it on the value sigma. So it means that the final flow will be Xi plus sigma. We remove dummy sinks and shelters, turn to the original network. So let us model the evacuation scenario in terms of dynamic evacuation of the maximum number of agreed from the hazardous area to the shelter. storage at nodes is available. And as you see, it is represented in the particular node. Storage enables transporting extra number of aggrieved to the safe areas. We should turn to the capacities which are given, and then turn to hesitant fuzzy decision matrix. Yeah. To determine the priority order of shelters, hesitant fuzzy hybrid averaging arithmetic averaging operator is used. A decision maker assesses intermediate nodes and defines the order in which evacuees must be conveyed to the shelters according to the level of reachability, which is given in the table A1, security A2, and transportation costs of the particular node. The attribute vector of importance degrees is given in the slide, and the vector of ordering ways is also considered. So following the step 1 of the algorithm, we calculate the scores of the hesitant fuzzy elements and then arrange the alternatives. So calculations for the first alternative is represented on the slide. Then, finally, we can compute the scores of the hesitant fuzzy elements and compare the particular values. We get 4 values, we should range them, and you see the order. It means that 2 is more preferable, the vertex X, 2 is more preferable than 3, which is more preferable than 1 and 4. So it means that we get the priority list of nodes to evacuation. Then we should find the augmenting paths to the sync T in the time expanded network. There is a variety of paths. The first one with 32 flow units, the second with 27, the third with 10, the fourth with 18, the fifth with 15, and the last one with 15. It means that the maximum dynamic flow to the sync is 117 flow units, which corresponds to the maximum dynamic flow without intermediate storage in the initial evacuation network. And then our goal is to find additional flow to intermediate nodes in the given priority order which were calculated previously. It means that first of all we should find the paths to the node X2, and it is 15 flow units, then again 15, then it is the node 3, it is a path with the flow 20 flow units. The next node is X1, it gives us 28 flow units, and it means that we don't have any flow to the node X4. So it means that the maximum dynamic flow from the source with intermediate storage is 284 units. And the particular flow distribution is given on the slide when we have arc capacities of each node time pair, arc capacities of each arc, and then the particular paths are shown in red, which are the main paths of distribution of the flow. And then by dashed lines are given the paths to add artificial flow and some excess values. So the reference list according to this topic is presented in the slide. Thank you very much, colleagues, for your attention. We're very happy to present this article, so maybe you have any questions.
If you have any questions in Russian, I'd be happy to translate that as well. I guess that was very clear. Honestly, that was really just a really well-made presentation. Like nothing was left up to any kind of different interpretations. Terribly sorry. I'm just gonna have to leave you for just 1 second and get some documents over, and we will resume in a second. Вот, доки, все возьми. Давай. Что, еще надо, нет? Ну все, давай. Еще дверь закроешь. Oh, I wasn't muted that whole time, was I? My bad. Okay, well, thank you very much, Professor. And so we will be moving on to Professor Gorkhmaz. who is a professor and corresponding member of the Azerbaijan
I listen. Petr Yakovlev, I listen you.
Well, I guess Petr has got some connection issues. So
I listen you.
Include modes of planning, the national economy, structure functional models of the economic systems, economy forecasting models, socio-economic development models, mainly pertaining to macroeconomic analysis, problems of economic uncertainties and fuzzy models assessment, quality of social systems, models of assessment of national strategy of sustainable development. He's also a professor and the corresponding member. I'm sorry?
Gel dara gitsin. Asap çekti, geldiğinden gel başlayalım.
So I guess we're just going to be going ahead with the presentation now, I suppose. So Professor Imanov, are you with us?
Don't listen you. Ne diyor?
Professor Imanov.
Oh.
Yeah.
Already.
Hi. So yeah, we're ready. We're ready to hear your presentation.
Mikrofonu açmak belki. Açmamış. Ha?
So while the microphone issues are getting sorted out, just a little bit extra on Professor Imanov's scientific achievements. He was in the International Conference for Fuzzy Sets and Soft Computing in Economics and Finance, and the member of the board of academician Nikolai Fedorenko. He was part of the International Scientific Foundation of Economic Research in Moscow, and honorary member of the Supreme Council of European Doctors, and a member of the Royal European Academy of Doctors in 2016. He's a member of the editorial board of the scientific journal Neurofuzzy Technologies Modeling in the in Economy in the Ukraine, tax journal of Azerbaijan, and the scientific and pedagogical news of Odla Yuri University, and the Journal of Economic Sciences Theory and Practice, also known as JESP. And he was also awarded the Azerbaijan State Award in Scientific Fields in 1984, awarded the International Scientific Foundation of Economic Research, named after NP Fedorenko in 2015. So another highly qualified presenter for us there. And if he's ready, I believe he's having a few internet issues. So we're just gonna have to wait a little bit more for that.
I can't see Professor Imanov among our participants. It seems that he also had some connection issues.
So what's the plan then? Are we going to be waiting, or are we going to be maybe reallocating the slots?
Maybe we can wait for a couple of minutes if he connects back. And if not, then we have a presentation by Professor Petoukhov.
We do that as our next in line. Yeah, so we could do the 12:40 slot now, and then obviously change that up for Professor Imanov to 40 minutes.
Maybe when he reconnects, the organizers will have to let him enter. That's why you have to be ready for that. So I suppose it's better to continue with
just
Professor
out of curiosity, is Professor Petoukhov here? And would he possibly be ready and give his presentation now? So Professor Petoukhov, are you here? I'll give kind of an introduction for you as well, but just kind of to make sure that you're actually here and ready.
He's got a video presentation. That's why you can present him to the audience, and after that we'll start the presentation.
That does make sense. Sure. So Professor Petoukhov, he is the chief of the Laboratory of Biochemical Systems of the Mechanical Engineering Research Institute of the Russian Academy of Sciences in Moscow. He's got a doctorate in physics and mathematics, as well as a PhD. And he's a full professor of the laureate of the State Prize of the USSR, of an academician. He's the chief of the Laboratory of Biomechanical Systems of the Russian Academy of Sciences, and is a member of the electoral boards of the International Journal of Biological Systems, as well as Symmetry, Culture and Science. A guest editor of the Symmetry and Genetic Engineering, Information, as well as a special double issue of the journal Symmetry, Culture and Science, as an editor of the book Advances in Bioinformatics and Its Applications. Also a series in Mathematical Biology and Medicine, and the guest editor of Symmetries and Genetic Information and Algebraic Biology of the journal Symmetry and Culture of Sciences. He's the author of 7 books and approximately 200 other scientific works. His main subject areas are engineering, mathematics, computer science, biochemistry, genetics and molecular biology, medicine, neuroscience, agricultural and biological neuroscience, physics and astronomy, environmental science, chemistry, multidisciplinary, and material science. And his most contributed topics. Oh, that's Professor Imanov.
I am here. I am here, Yakovlev.
Oh, you're here. Lovely.
Yes, yes.
So I suppose we go with Professor Imanov now and then stick to the regular time scheduling. So Professor Imanov, the corresponding professor of the Azerbaijan National Academy of Sciences. Professor Imanov, that's
yes, yes, yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just a minute.
Oh, it's quite all right. Yeah. Internet issues.
Şehirde açımda prezentasyon. O dördü buradan da. Onu ver.
Birinci bulma.
Evet. Öyle. Bunu bırak. Beşiği. Sadı bırak. Ha? Bunu vurma ha. Dear friends, listen me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, Yakovlev, can I begin my
yes.
report or no?
Yes, absolutely, Professor Imanov. Yes, we can hear you and we are ready for your report.
Yes.
I think we're just going to need to wait just a few more seconds for the internet to reappear.
Can I continue?
Yes, absolutely.
Indicators of indices depend on the organization and purpose of scientists and now in artificial intelligence, robotics, and internet. Humanity is faced with knowledge and skill in these areas. In the context of the first industrial revolution, when determining the level of development, it is necessary to take into account the level of knowledge and skills in investigation process. In my work, were proposed index of estimation quality of level countries development, level of developments macroeconomic stability, social capital, level of skills, human capital and research, knowledge and technological outputs, and level of eco-civilization indices were used for estimation. In the computational process, an intuitionistic fuzzy linguistic set was proposed. Intuitionistic linguistic fuzzy sets introduced by Professor Atanasov is a generalization of the concept of Professor Litvizade fuzzy sets. In 2009, Young and where S theta and mu AX and mu AX that satisfied a condition of this condition and mu and mu A and mu A represents a membership degree and non-membership degree of elements X to the linguistic value S theta X. For every linguistic intuitionistic fuzzy sets is associated P equal 1 mu A intuitionistic fuzzy index of the element X of the linguistic variable S theta X. For linguistic intuitionistic fuzzy sets, the triple is called linguistic intuitionistic fuzzy number. We proposed algorithms for defining sub-indices and indices for the define of level of countries development. In first stage of the problem solution, where the selected indicators have a different nature and therefore are measured in different units, and their values are quantized of different orders. The primary information is normalized by the using formula 1 and 2, where the xi theta is normalized value of primary information. Xi maximum is maximum value of the primary information in a row I. Xi minimum value of primary information in row I. Formula 1 is used for the indicators, the great importance of which positive affects the growth of indices. Formula 2 is applied to the indicators a great value which adversely affected the economic process. Then is defined linguistic terms C in this work we used linguistic terms low, middle, and high. At second step, define intuitionistic fuzzy triangular membership and non-membership faction of A takes the form 3. This here mu R membership degree and new AR non-membership degree. At third step, weights of indicators are estimated as the weights of the decision makers as proposed by Boran et al. This concept is a more effective way to deal with vagueness of decision makers, which may not be able to accurately express their satisfaction or membership degrees for alternatives due to the one, the decision maker have not precise or sufficient information about the problem. Decision makers are unable to discriminate explicitly the superiority of an alternative to others. For define of we use for define of we use this formula where mu is membership degree, P is an uncertainty degree, and nu is non-membership degree of indicators. In first steps, according to the following intermistic linguistic weighted average formula, the value of sub-indices defined. By using this formula, we also will define sub-indices of aggregate indices of level of development country. As sub-indices level of macroeconomic stability, in order to estimate sub-index of macroeconomic stability, following indicators were used, which are proposed by International Monetary Fund. Real gross domestic product growth and employment rate, consumer price index, revenue, including grants in percent of GDP, expenditure in percent of GDP, general government gross debt in percent of GDP, and credit to the private sector, current account balance, foreign direct investment, net inflows, gross international reserves. Also, real effective exchange rate. As a result, we define that from the results of calculating some indices as a level of quality macroeconomic stability in Azerbaijan in 2016 was above than low. In 2017 and in 2018, these indicators slightly decreased compared to the previous years. Sub-index level of social capital. No. In order to define sub-index social capital, indicators were used information United Nations Basel Institute of Commons and Economics, and we also add to this list of indicators healthcare and corruption. So first indicators for define of sub-indices social capital. First indicators social climate. This is psychological climate. Social context is typically defined as the perceptions of social environment that tend to be by a group of people. Second, the trust among people to believe that someone is good and honest and will not harm you, or that sometimes is safe and reliable. Third, indicators willingness to co-finance public goods by austerity measures, and indicator of how much a person value a good measured by the maximum amount he or she would pay to acquire to unit of the good. First, willingness to co-finance public goods by taxes and contribution, financing local public goods characterized by social enforcement and the involvement of public officials. Five, willings, the interest in the local economy and cooperatives, sub-central, regional and local levels of government support by loans, tax concessions and grants to local economy and cooperatives. Six, helpfulness among people, the property of providing useful assistance and friendliness evidence by kindly and helpful disposition. Seventh, friendliness among people, the quality of person to be friendly and pleasant towards anyone. Eight, hospitality among people, friendly, welcoming behavior towards guests or strangers. Nine, healthcare. Healthcare is the total societal effort, organized or not, whether private or public, that attempts to guarantee, provide, finance, and promote health. 10, corruption is a serious crime that undermines social and economic development and weakness of the fabric of modern day society. By using expert opinion, and steps of algorithms, terms with following international were used low, middle, and high terms. As seen from results, quality of social capital is low in Azerbaijan, which information we could get.
Professor Imanov, I think we lost you for a minute. And
Sorry.
I think you're muted. There we go.
Can I continue?
Yeah, absolutely. We can see the screen and you're not muted. You're all good.
Human capital is defined by OSD as knowledge, skills, competency, and attributes embodied in individual that facilitates the creation of personal, social, and economic well-being. As results, we, according to steps, these algorithms firstly define linguistic variables and then define of sub-indices meaning, which results of computation shows that in 2015 and 2018 were some above than low, and in the 16 and 17 years were close to middle. Sub-indices level of skill. In order to estimation sub-indices level of skill, were used European Skill Index, Human Development Index, and labor productivity. Results of the calculation shows that in 2015, 2017 shows that equal to above than low, and 2018 close to knowledge and technology. To assess the sub-indices knowledge and technology outputs, the indicators of the Global Innovation Index were used, were demonstrated in presentation. First, knowledge creation, knowledge impact, knowledge diffusion. Results of the computation sub-indices shows in presentation. Results computing shows that in 2016-2018 years were low. Sub-indices level of ecological civilization. Indicators renewable fresh water resource for 1,000 inhabitants, expense for protection of environment, reforestation land in total forest area, total protected areas as the share of national territory, share of the total renewable energy supply in total energy consumption in percent. Environmental performance index, share of organic agricultural land. By using statistical information of Azerbaijan, were solved problem for 2016-2018 years. Results show in here, as seen from results of computation of eco-civil sub-indices were low. By using of above mentioned formula of intuitionistic linguistic weighted average, were defined aggregate index quality of development of countries for 2016-2018 years. as you see from presentation, from the results quality of level of countries, development in 3 years was middle. Conclusion, as seen from the approach to problem of defining level of countries' development in this paper, were investigated main indicators such as macroeconomic stability, social capital, human capital, the modern condition of post-industrial revolution. Proposed approach gives possibility to decision makers estimate optimal parameters of management of quality level of countries' development. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Imanov.
Yes,
so
I
we do
finished.
have a
You
little bit of
asked
time
me.
for. Yeah, so we do have a little bit of time for questions as well. So we have a question for Professor Imanov.
Please.
So the question is on membership functions. Are triangle membership functions also used for extreme
Yes,
linguistic terms?
Indeed.
It's written out in the chat.
Yes. This is here we demonstrated membership function mu a, and for it we use triangular function, triangular membership function, and here there are some epsilon. This is classical form of a membership function, but here we use some parameters for undertake of some uncertainty in economic information. And also this is these parameters used in non-membership function. Epsilon, this is classical triangular membership function, and also use non-membership. Please.
All right. And then we also have another question in the chat. Thank you from the person that asked. There's another question. Is that possible to make predictions based on the model?
No, this is only for analysis.
Mm-hmm.
For analysis, yeah, I think so. For forecasting, we can do another approach to this problem.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. And then another question in the chat: are membership functions completely deterministic, or is there some probability distribution underneath?
Yeah. Bu deterministik değil mi? Yoksa burada ihtimal paylanması var mı?
No, deterministic forms. This is. For it,
So the
must,
membership functions.
For this problem which you ask, we must use from Z numbers, Z fuzzy numbers. This is last results of Professor Zade. this is intuitionistic. In intuitionistic, we don't use probabilistic approach.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you so much. Is there any more questions? No, I don't think there is. And yeah, just another thank you in the chat for the comprehensive replies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, bye.
So, goodbye. So now it is time for the presentation of Sergey Petoukhov. So we did the introduction already, but I'll just reintroduce because we didn't quite get the opportunity to play it instantly. We were a little bit out of sync with the internet connectivity issues. So Professor Petoukhov is has a PhD in physics. A doctorate in physics and mathematics. Grand PhD, a full professor in literature, literate of the State Prize of the USSR academician. The chief of the Laboratory of Biomechanical Systems of the Mechanical Engineering Research Institute of the Russian Academy of Sciences in Moscow. He is also a member of the editorial boards of the international journals Journal of Biological Systems and Symmetry, Culture and Science, as well as guest editor of Symmetry in Genetic Information, with a special double issue of the journal Symmetry, Culture and Science, and also a editor of the book Advances in Bioinformatics and its Applications, as well as series in Mathematical Biology and Medicine, a guest editor of the issue Symmetries in Genetic Information and Algebraic Biology of the journal Symmetry, Culture and Science, and is also the author of 7 books and approximately 200 other scientific works. His subject areas are engineering, mathematics, computer science, biochemistry, genetics and molecular biology, medicine, neuroscience, agricultural and biological sciences, physics and astronomy, environmental science, chemistry, multidisciplinary, material science. And his most contributed topics are genetic code, codons, anticodons, hierarchy, progressive tense, emergence of life, human genome, Samuel Butler, and natural law. So we have a presentation from Professor Petoukhov, which I believe we're going to play. Yeah.
Symmetries, genetic languages, holography, and algebraic harmony in genetics. Sergey Petoukhov. Genetic information is recorded in molecules DNA by means of long sequences of 4 nucleotides: adenine A, thymine P, cytosine C, and guanine G, and their combinations. Such long DNA sequence for each of many genomes is presented in the gene bank in a standard form occupying thousands of pages. There are many mutually related DNA alphabets: 4 nucleotides, 16 doublets, 64 triplets, etc. Taking this into account, the author proposed to analyze any DNA sequence not as a single text, but as a set of parallel texts, each of which is written in one of these alphabets. This author's approach made it possible to reveal the universal hyperbolic rules of DNA sequences of genomes of higher and lower organisms shown below. For example, let's turn to the DNA of human chromosome number 1, whose chain contains about 230 million nucleotides A, T, C, G. Let's firstly take the DNA as a text of nucleotides and calculate the number of nucleotides adenine. Then take the DNA as a text of doublets and calculate the number of all 4 doublets starting with adenine. Then represent the DNA as a text of triplets and calculate the number of all 16 triplets starting with adenine and so on, taking n is equal to 1, 2, 3 till 20. The following 20 numbers arise in this. It is striking that all 20 points with these coordinates practically coincide with the hyperbolic sequence, whose numerator is the number of nucleotides A in this DNA. The deviation of real quantities are hundreds of a percent only. Knowing the number of nucleotides A in the genomic DNA sequence, it is possible to predict with high accuracy the values of 19 other named sums of n-plets. Similar results are obtained in the same chromosome when calculating the total number of n-plets which start with any of the other 3 nucleotides, T, C, or G. Similar hyperbolic interrelations of n-plet sums in each of the A, T, C, and G grouping of n-plets were obtained for analyzed many DNA sequences, including extremophiles living in extreme conditions, for example, radiation with a level 100 times higher than fatal for humans. See slide. This data on the universal hyperbolic rules of eukaryotic and prokaryotic genomes say that these global genomic algebraic invariants remain unchanged over millions of years of biological evolution, during which millions of species die and new ones arise. Although locally genomic sequences are modified under the action of mutations, the presence of natural selection, etc. Their model hyperbolic sequences serve as mathematical standards for the general phenomenological rules of n-plet sums in eukaryotic and prokaryotic genomes. By appropriate scaling of numerators, each of these genomic hyperbolic sequences is transformed into the historically famous harmonic progression. Such name, the harmonic progression, comes from its connection with the series of harmonics in music. The harmonic progression was studied by Pythagoras, Leibniz, Newton, Euler, Fourier, Dirichlet, Riemann, in relation to different mathematical and physical problems. Now the harmonic progression shows itself unexpectedly in all tested genomes. The harmonic progression since the time of Pythagoras is associated with harmonics of music and standing waves in resonators. One can suppose that spiral DNAs are spiral antennas of electromagnetic waves of certain circular polarization for the possibility of exchanging radio waves of selective polarization, the problem of chirality in biology. The harmonic progression has interesting mathematical features. In particular, the sums of the first members of the harmonic progression are called harmonic numbers. The series of harmonic numbers serve as the discrete analog of the continuous function of natural logarithm. This is in particular connects the harmonic progression with the Weber-Fechner logarithmic law, which is the main psychophysical law and dictates information features for all inherited sensory channels, vision, hearing, smell, etc. It testifies that genetic and different and different psychophysical levels of inherited biological informatics are structurally intercorrelated on the algebra harmonic basis. The next part, algebra holographic principles in genetic informatics. Living organisms have properties that resemble those of holography with its non-local informatics. For example, in embryology, Dre showed that by separating the blastomers of sea urchin eggs from each other, normal larvae can be grown. Pribram's book, Languages of the Brain, about the holographic principles of the brain work, emphasizes that holographic description is unmatched for explaining the problems of perception. But all physiological structures are genetically inherited, and therefore it is natural to look for algebraic holographic properties in the algebraic structured system of genetic coding. Methods of algebraic holography used in digital informatics include, firstly, bit reversible holography. Secondly, holographic coding by Walsh-Hadamard transformation. Thirdly, logical holography based on Walsh functions. The author has found that all these three methods are consistent with the structures of DNA informatics. This 20-minute talk will clear on the consistency with bit reversible holography as an example. The bit reversion means reading binary numbers in the opposite direction. For example, 001 becomes 100, which correspond to decimal numbers 1 and 5. The figure shows an image A inside a matrix in which all columns and rows are sequentially numbered with binary numbers. Reading each of these binary numbers in reverse order leads to renumbering of columns and rows, and then new placement with the corresponding transformation of the entire image, the second frame. If now part of this frame is corrupted, then reapplying the bit reverse reading with a permutation will restore the original image. Let us show the correspondence of the bit reversible holography to genetic informatics. The 4 DNA nucleotides A, T, C, and G are endowed with binary oppositional traits. Firstly, 2 of these nucleotides are purines, A and G, and the other 2, C and T, are pyrimidines. From the standpoint of these oppositional indicators, C and T is equal 1, A and G is equal 0. Secondly, 2 of these nucleotides are keto molecules, T and G, and the other 2, C and T, are amino molecules, which give a representation C and T is equal to 1, T and G is equal to 0. This symmetric property allows representing DNA alphabets of 4 letters, 16 duplets, 64 triplets, etc., in the form of square tables whose columns are numbered with binary indicators pyrimidine or purine, and whose rows with binary indicators amino or keto. In such table, all nucleotides, doublets, triplets, etc., automatically take their strictly individual place. These DNA alphabet tables turn out to be members of the tensor family of alphabetical matrices CATG in n tensor power. The phenomenological fact of the binary positional division of the DNA alphabet of 64 triplets, according to their code properties, into 2 equal sub-alphabets is known. 32 triplets with strong roots and 32 triplets with weak roots. In the constructed matrices of DNA alphabets of 16 duplets, 64 triplets, and 255 tetraplets, we mark enclaves with strong roots in black. The bit reversal permutation in these mosaic matrices generates a family of multi-block matrices whose mosaic consists of repeating a mosaic of a matrix of 16 duplets. Black and white cells of the matrices can be presented by elements +1 and -1 in them. The mosaics of all emerging DNA alphabetical matrices are a repetition of the mosaic of the alphabet matrix of 16 duplets, forming matrix crystals. Does this universal repeating block, shown in the bottom at left, have a considerable algebraic meaning? Yes, it has. It turns out that this block is the sum of shown four sparse matrices whose set is closed under multiplication and determines the corresponding multiplication tables, known as the multiplication tables of the algebra of four-dimensional split quaternions of Kopl. Split quaternions are used in the Poincare disk model to describe hyperbolic motions in Lobachevsky hyperbolic geometry. The symbol of the Poincare model is shown. Using the symbol of the Poincare disk model of hyperbolic geometry, the resulting block mosaic matrices of structured DNA alphabets are represented in artistic form to facilitate heuristic associations. The family of block unified matrices of DNA alphabets, whose block are coupled with the disk model of hyperbolic geometry, unexpectedly echoes the semiotic quantum codes that correct errors. This topic is being developed at the California Institute of Technology, USA, in connection with the same Poincare disk model. The picture is from a presentation at the American Physical Society. This holographic topic is headed by Preskel, director of the Caltech Institute for Quantum Information and Matter. The topic also includes the consideration of space-time as a quantum error correcting code. Known with images of the Poincare disk model. Note that the action of the obtained holographic operators of two n-dimensional vectors with unrelated cyclic changing coordinates generates vectors with a binary organization of mutually related coordinates. Figuratively speaking, the order is generated from the cause. This algebraic holographic result simulates the characteristic property of every organism to be a huge chorus of coordinated cyclic processes. According to Cronin-Metzing, all our diseases are the result of a violation of this coordination. For example, a violation of the coordinated cyclic walk of parts of the heart system leads to cardiac arrhythmias. Revealing the connection of the genetic coding system with the Poincare disk model of hyperbolic geometry testifies to the genetic basis of the known facts of the relationship between physiological phenomena and hyperbolic geometry. One should know that arrangement of 20 amino acids and stop codons in the matrix of 64 triplets and its bit reversal analog are very symmetrical. So genetic informatics is closely related to the principles of algebraic holography. It is interesting that the matrix of 64 triplets in its binary positional structure is similar to the famous table of 64 hexagrams of the type of the ancient Chinese Book of Changes, I Ching. The ancient Chinese claimed that this table of 64 hexagrams is a universal natural archetype. They did not know anything about the genetic code. but it, with its 64 triplets and binary properties, turns out to be surprisingly similar to the stable and schemes of etching. One can add the works of many physicists are devoted to algebraic holographic principles in the structure of universe. David Bohm, Petoukhov, and many others. The details of today's talk are in the preprint. Conclusions. Our studies of biosymmetries have discovered that the base structures of molecular genetic informatics, common for all species of organisms, correspond to the principles of algebraic holography and algebraic harmony. Accordingly, the genetic basis of holographic and harmonic properties in inherited physiological systems is revealed. New approaches to the development of algebraic and quantum biology and its applications are emerging. Thanks for your attention. Please send questions to my email since we have very little time for deep discussion now. It is a very complex topic. Thank you very much once more.
So any of the questions that we do have, we are going to ask you to forward on. I'm just going to put that in the chat.
It was
over
on
to this
the
email over here.
record.
Yeah. So it was a recording, but any of the questions that we do have for Professor Petoukhov, we're going to forward on to the email. Oh, hold on. Put that in the wrong place. There we go. To the email that I just sent into chat. And then from there, that'll be forwarded on and possibly answered. And I believe we're going to have a small break now. We did go a little bit over time, so that'll be kind of up to the discretion of the organizers as to how much of a break we take. I don't know, we'll leave it there, I suppose. У нас сейчас перерыв будет только, ну, так как немножечко из-за там интернета, из-за всего, по времени немножечко прошлись запад. Не знаю, по идее должно быть до 11:10 перерыв, но сейчас решим, до скольки он будет на самом деле идти.
I suppose it's better to start at 13:10 as is in the program, so that our next presenters could connect in time.
Okay. So yeah, so just a 10-minute break then until 13:10. just going to wait a few more minutes and start. Okay, so that's roughly 11:10, and we're just going to start. So our next presenter is Nadezhda Konstantinova Rubtsova. She's a specialist in applied and theoretical German language studies, translation, logical language analysis, terminological study, and analysis, as well as culturology, lexicography, metalinguistics, humanitarian digitalized sciences, and also received a doctorate in philological studies in 1996. She's in charge of the sector of applied language studies in Iran in 2004, and works in the sector of applied language studies in the University of Ran within the Department of Language Studies. She's published more than 190 scientific publications, as well as 8 individual ones, such as Language and Язык и естественный интеллект, which translates to language and natural intellect, as well as Academia in 2005, Academia, and Информационные процессы и машинный перевод, Linguistic aspect, Informational processes and userized translation, the linguistical aspect, in 1986, as well as collectivized monography. She's also published more than 450 individual papers, as well as many. I'm sorry?
Linguistic.
Linguistic, yes. So should we go ahead with the presentation then?
Yes, I shall make demonstration экрана. Есть. Ну, а дальше выберите. Я кликнула, а дальше? Поделиться, что ли?
Скорее всего, да.
Есть. А еще у
Вот
меня
всё
было
работает.
слайд-шоу. Слайд-шоу.
Да, оно сейчас показывается, да.
У вас слайд-шоу, а у меня нет. У меня нет слайд-шоу. А, вот, есть. Значит,
Мгм.
thank you very much for my
Okay, so
introduction.
Dr. Rizzo, yeah.
I shall speak English, and my slides have also texts in Russian. So there's no need in any translation. Okay? Peter?
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
no-
that's fine.
Yes, there's no need in any translation because my talk is in both languages at the same time.
Okay.
I will speak in English, and the text is also in Russian. My talk is purely linguistic, and I'm not very sure that it will be interesting to all of you, but still, I had a suggestion, and so I start. So my talk is on the main changes in contemporary international scientific communication and the dominant supranational intertwined tendencies in it, the digitalization in information processing and the English language globalization. Its lingua franca status in scientific communication to date produces a number of linguistic, cultural, and social effects, consequences, and problems. Is it okay? Do everybody hear well? Peter, do you hear me well?
Yeah, we hear you well.
Okay.
And yeah.
Thank you. So these main tendencies in contemporary scientific communication, digitalization in information processing, and the English language globalization mean that English becomes a foreign language number one in science and digital information exchange. Thus, acquiring academic style language and terminology in English is becoming extremely topical all over the world. Both tendencies as well mean that academic papers in Russian should be provided at least with translation of their titles, abstracts, and keywords into English. The main problem here is that academic style in English differs considerably from the academic style in Russian because of grammatical, lexical, semantic, pragmatic, and communicative asymmetry between the languages. That is why direct, literal, formal word-for-word Russian-English translation won't sound authentic. The main linguistic distinctions between academic writing in Russian and in English are the following. Academic English is more active, direct, concise, compact, compressed, and transparent. It is characterized by its own collocational and combinatory usage of scientific lexicon. It has its own linguistic patterns in terminology formation and usage, and many others. In sum, academic writing in English and in Russian differs in grammar, structure, style, wording, and focus. And that is why scientific papers in Russian, their titles and abstracts, cannot be translated word for word literally into English. Further, my talk will be devoted to the problems in Russian-English translation of scientific texts in general and their titles and abstracts in particular, as they both become of prior importance for international digital bibliometric resources and citations indexes. Academic style is language-specific. It is traceable in academic paper titles and dictates their structure, grammar, wording, and stylistic distinctions. That is why in English, academic paper titles differ from those in Russian in structure, starting, organization, wording, style, grammar, terminology, etc. Russian academics first. Russian academic style typically generates rather extended titles with multiple abstract nouns, genitive constructions incorporated into a single noun string. Its word-for-word translation into English produces multiple of constructions. For example, три пути постижения лингвистической реальности в свете идеала цельного знания. Its word-for-word translation was given in the book Cognitive Study of Language. 3 ways of conceiving the linguistic reality in the light of the ideal of the integral knowledge. While English academic style prefers a 2-part pattern of a title. The letter in the stern prefers the end conjunction, a colon, non-finite and interrogative constructions, and some others. For example, authentic title, basic color terms, their universality and evolution. 2. Russian academic style typically generate titles starting with abstract nouns. О способах наивного толкования, проблемы манипулятивного воздействия, возможности изучения процесса. Their word-for-word translation into English produces non-usable patterns on methods of naive interpretation, or the problem of the possibilities of studying the process of technical text translation. While English academic style prefers an active ing forms, for example, authentic pointing and placing, nominal grounding in Argentine Sign Language. Thus, extensive the possibilities of studying the process of technical text translation can be compressed to a more informative and more authentic studying technical translation. 3. Russian academic style often generates titles with parentheses. На материале древних языков на примере пассивных конструкций на основе корпусных данных. All these examples are from linguistics. For example, терминологическая эпонимия в социокультурном контексте на материале англоязычных терминов психологии. Such titles are usually translated from Russian into English literally. Terminological eponymy in the social-cultural context based on English psychology terms, while authentic English titles prefer quite another pattern, for example, speech, gesture, constructions in cognitive grammar, the case of bits and points. 4. Scientific paper titles in Russian often have some interpretative connectors, such as X с точки зрения в свете, в зеркале, в контексте, в рамках Y. X как ключ, как способ, как основа, как предмет. Usually, they are translated into English literally. For example, as viewed by, within the framework of, as a key to, as a means of. For example, 3 пути притяжения лингвистической реальности в свете идеала цельного знания. 3 ways of conceiving the linguistic reality in the light of the ideal of integral knowledge. Such expressions are not used in authentic paper titles in English. For example, more successful translation of a title is the following. Эмоциональное обучение как фактор активизации познавательной деятельности in English would sound good. Emotional teaching as cognitive activity reinforcement. 5. Scientific paper titles in Russian often have abstract nouns such as система, предмет, феномен, etc., which are translated into English literally. For example, комплексный анализ текста в системе междисциплинарного языкового образования. Comprehensive analysis of the text in the system of interdisciplinary language education. Обыденный политический дискурс как предмет лингвоперсонологии. The everyday political discourse as a subject of. In English, such abstract nouns are superfluous and are not used in authentic paper titles. For example, comprehensive analysis of the text in interdisciplinary language education. Everyday political discourse in linguistic identity theory. 6. Scientific paper titles in Russian often have some free expressions such as деятельность человека, поведение человека, язык человека, and many others. For example, коммуникация как особый тип интегративной когнитивной деятельности человека. Such titles are usually translated from Russian into English literally. For example, communication is a special type of integrative cognitive activity of a man. In English, such meanings are rendered by set expressions and collocations. For example, human activity, as well as human behavior, human language, human mind, and not in any other way. Thus, to make the word-for-word translated title communication as a special type of integrative cognitive activity of man sound more authentic, we can exclude the superfluous a special type of and use the correct human activity. So we get communication as an integrative human activity. And here is a citation where human is used many times. Human language, human learnable communication, human society. And no other way of expressing the same idea. 7. For Russian English translations of scientific paper titles, it is highly characteristic to give literal equivalents for английский язык, русский язык, китайский язык. For example, развитие качественных значений относительных прилагательных как исторический процесс и актуализация тенденций русского языка, development of relative adjectives, qualitative meanings as a historical process and current trends of the Russian language. Фонетическая грамматика русского языка, phonetic grammar of the Russian language, while in English they usually say in Russian, in English, in Chinese. Compare authentic title prefixes versus initial combining forms in English, a lexicographic perspective. It's an example from International Journal of Lexicography. 9. Eight. For Russian English translations of scientific paper titles, it is highly characteristic to form by analogy and use grammatically incorrect derivatives. So, linguistic, syntactic, semantic, and phonological, lexical, phraseological is correct, while pragmatical or anthropocentrical is incorrect. Such cases can be also called translators' false friends. It is of the same kind as, for example, annotation and abstract peculiarities and distinctions, aspect and perspective. They are usually misused in translations from Russian into English. 9. Noun groups like key feature, research paper, language studies, etc. are a most important element in any authentic scientific paper in English, as well as of its title and abstract. For example, Southern African linguistics and applied language studies. Now, noun groups are absent in Russian grammar. That is why it is difficult for Russian native speakers to form and use noun groups in general, and in titles and abstracts in particular. Now, noun groups are especially problematic for non-native speakers. Haynes, 2014. Now, noun groups are particularly helpful in compressing titles. An important way of compressing a translated title is to eliminate a superfluous of construction in it. For example, комплексный анализ текста в системе междисциплинарного языкового образования, comprehensive analysis of the text in the system of interdisciplinary language education would sound better in English if we say comprehensive text analysis in interdisciplinary language education. Now, noun groups are actively used in English authentic scientific writing, paper titles, and abstracts, not only because they are compact, compressing, and dense in meaning, but also because they are a most convenient way to create terminology. Now, noun groups often express some special disciplinary notions: sign language, language acquisition, language shift, discourse features, case study, construction, grammar, etc. They can be extended by various supplementary notions of special or terminological character: online, environmental knowledge resources, online dictionary usefulness, construction, grammar, approach to argument structure, etc. Such terminological expressions are idiomatic in nature and cannot be translated word for word into Russian, and vice versa. For example, исследования в области теории, практики, перевод in English would be translation studies. Often they combine with other terms to form clusters. Now, noun groups often combine with other terms to form clusters. Terminology clusters in English are generated according to active derivative patterns. Their language-specific character make them idiomatic and exclude their word-for-word translation into Russian, and vice versa. Corpus-based lexicology, evidence-based arguments, corpus-based account, usage-based approach, frequency-driven approach. Then can be further extended by various additional notions so that to convey in a compressed form a large volume of disciplinary information. For example, to introduce multilingual computer-assisted language learning, to easily identify clear-cut cases, to identify fixed and semi-fixed multi-word expressions. They are particularly important scientific paper titles and abstracts. So there's a number of reasons why scientific papers in Russian and in English are titled in different ways. So when translating scientific paper titles from Russian into English, one should rearrange it into a two-part construction, open brackets, omit non-specific openings such as report on and study of. Substitute interpretative connectors by prepositions, conjunctions, columns. Delete general and abstract nouns, check derivatives and find false friends, omit pleonastic elements, use and check collocations, substitute of constructions and all other, if possible, by noun groups. Use active terminological patterns. So instead of saying the possibilities of studying the process of technical text translation, it is better to say in English, studying technical translation. In conclusion, I would give an example of how to compress an abstract. I published paper under the title «Место слов в категории состояния в системе четырехречия английского языка, statewide status in the part of speech system of the English language», has an abstract in Russian and its translation into English with some superfluous elements given in bold italics. The given article considers the problem of the status word status and as independent part of speech in the English language, etc. The words in bold italics are not very informative and can be deleted. Thus, a wordy abstract can be compressed to a more concise and a matter of fact. And the same can be done to the paper title. So we can get a short and informative abstract. The paper considers state words as an independent part of speech in English, their distinctions, structure, and functioning. That's all. Thank you very much for your kind attention. So,
I'm so sorry. I think I'm having some internet issues myself.
Questions, yes?
Yes, I have a question. Thank you very much, dear Nadezhda Konstantinovna, for very, very informative presentation. I'd like to ask a question. Are there significant differences in English academic writing in the human and non-human sciences? Thank you.
Non-human what?
Sciences, human and non-human sciences, differences, significant differences, are there or no?
Yes, of course there are very significant differences because in humanitarian sciences there are very much words and almost no any formulas, while in technical disciplines, there are very many terminology, graphics, and all other visual presentations, and quite a small percentage of, so to say, general statements.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There is a question in chat.
Посмотрим. Чат. Thank you. Is there some practical application for such analysis? Of course, all superfluous words which you insert in your translation into English would make a noise in any information system. And your paper will be given to very many people who are not interested in linguistics, for example, system, when it is used in its technical term it is a technical sense, it is terminology. While in linguistics, for example, системы частей речи, it's not a term, it's just an abstract noun. A supplementary characteristic, which is very characteristic to the Russian scientific style, which whose main feature is to explain and extend your thoughts as much as possible, to express yourself completely. While in English, it is to compress yourself as much as possible. So these tendencies are opposite. And if you put many abstract non-terminological words in your title, your paper perhaps will not find the addressee for whom it was written. Well, it's one question.
Yes, that's all.
Да. 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 Все, thank you.
Thank you very much once more.
Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Doctor. So I believe my internet has fixed itself at this point, and we're going to have a presentation from Massimo Squante and Gerardo Fataruso, who I will introduce in just a moment.
Good morning.
Good
morning.
Good morning.
I'm just about to introduce you, sorry. So just a little second. And we'll start off with Massimo Squante. Massimo Squante is a professor in mathematical methods in economics, finance, and actuarial sciences. He's the director of the Department of Law, Economics, Management, and Quantitative Methods. The president of the Scientific Committee of Federalia Research and Development Center. He's also a member of the Accademia Pallarito dei Pericolani, and he's been awarded by Anasilios Pythagoras Prize. He's also been the vice rector of the University of Sana'a, and he's the member of the consortium SISCA, the Inter-University Center of Actuarial Studies, as well as the coordinator of the Europe Direct Center Lot at Benevento. The coordinator of the Didactic Center, I'm sorry? Sorry, I'll just continue then.
Yes.
The coordinator of the Didactic Center of Accademia dei Lincei at Benevento, and has given invited lectures at the universities of La Sapienza, La Habana, Nice, Trento, La Sorbonne, Sevilla, Linz, Braga, and Durban. So that's Massimo Squante. And we also have a short CV for Gerardo Fataruso. Fataruso is a PhD in mathematical methods for economics and finance. During her PhD, she collaborated with the University of Portsmouth in the UK, as well as Neoma Business School in France and Stellantis. She deals with the analysis of decision-making processes and the construction of multi-criteria mathematical models to support the organizational control functions. These topics, she has obtained results. On these topics, she has obtained the results presented at conferences and published at international journals, and has already received national and international awards and prizes. So those are our two speakers for the following presentation.
Thanks a lot, Peter. I just thanks a lot to Peter, to the organizer for the invitation. It is really a pleasure and an honor for us to be here and to expose some of our results. I precise that we are engaged and interested in decisional procedures, and in particular to multi-criteria analysis. This is a kind of methodology that I think it's very interesting from a theoretical point of view. I mean the mathematical structures, analytical and algebraic structures that are involved in order to explain and to represent this kind of methods. And above all, from a practical point of view. In particular, we have applied this kind of methods to several questions involving public administrations and also urbanistic and architectural project. The last work of Dr. Gerarda Fattoruso, concerns the risk management for some enterprises in the automotive sector. And she has worked with a very important international company that produce engaged in the automotive sector by building a particular kind of a prototype that allow to the management of the enterprise to control and to avoid a lot of errors, human errors. But this is the job of Gerarda to explain this kind of a job. And I just stress that the work of Gerarda has been recognized and in many contests. And it is a pleasure for me to say that next week, Gerarda will be awarded in Rome with an important prize, Dorso Prize, and that will be given at Gerarda in the Senatus of Italian Repubblica. And it is enough for me, and I think that Gerarda may start with the presentation. Thanks.
Thanks. You look the presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we can see
thanks, thanks, Massimo. Thanks, Peter. Good morning, everyone. I'm Gerarda Fattoruso, PhD in Mathematical Methods and lecturer at Neoma Business School. Today, I show you our research project implementation of control system with multi-criteria methodologies. So this project is born by the collaboration of different international universities as University of St. University of Portsmouth, and the Neoma Business School and in France, and the collaboration with an international automotive company team in Italy. So this presentation is organized in 3 parts. In the first part, I show you the background knowledge of the work. In the second part, the methodological proposal, and in the third part, the perspective of this work. So the first part regards the background knowledge. The starting point is the decisional problems identified in the company. The decisional problem regards the error on the genes occurs in the automotive production processes. So the automotive production processes is organized in a set of processes in which there are a set of domains. The goal of each single process is to prevent error from reaching the next process. In this sense, however, when an error occurs in the automotive production process, error resolution process starts for identifying and solving the error occurs on the production processes. So when one error occurs in the automotive production processes, starts a resolution processes organized in 5 steps. The first is the identification of the root cause. The second is the prioritization of errors in the plant. The third step is the analysis of critical processes. The first step is the analysis of causes, identifying machine, method, man, and material. And the last step is to identification of a set of actions to solve the error occurs in the plant. So our research aim are in the first time the design and implementation of a novel prototype of innovative methodological tools to support organizational control functions in the automotive sector. So these methodological tools evaluate and forecast the error in production processes in order to reduce the error occurs in the plant. The last research aim is the implementation of a multi-criteria methodology as quality control tools in the automotive sector. So the research innovation for the company are the first one is the use of multi-criteria methods as quality control model to push to changes in the sector, the proposal of a prototype for the production process of the automotive sector, and the strength is the flexibility of the prototype that we allow to apply to also in further processes and context. From a theoretical point of view, from a methodological point of view, we propose 2 different new methodological approaches. The first is the combination of multi-criteria methods and portfolio selection method, and the second is a hybrid sorting method based on the parsimonious HP. So we enrich the innovative research stream in which decisions are made in the context of a scarcity of resources according with the necessity of acting on the basis of priorities. So we analyzed the principal literature review of the automotive sector. We analyzed about 150 papers, and from the analysis of the literature, it's possible to identify that the use of the multi-criteria methods is growing in the automotive industry, and in particular, the most important method used in the automotive sector are the analytic hierarchy process, Promete, Wycor, and so on. At this point, it's possible to show you our methodological proposal. Our area of investigation is the first 3 steps of the error resolution processes used in the company in Italy. The analysis of the root cause, the error prioritization, and the analysis of critical processes. So we analyzed in the first time the company tools. From the analysis of this tool, it's possible to identify the priority index for the ordered the errors in the plant. This priority index is constructed by multiplication of different criteria and ordered this error in a set of ordered classes. The top 50% of error is classified in the first class of gravity. The second 20% of error is classified in the second class of gravity, and so on. From the analysis of this index, this priority index is possible to identify several weaknesses. The first is the aggregation of criteria because it's a simple multiplication of criteria. The second is the unclear definition of weights to criteria. And the third is the way in which the error are classified. In ordered classes. So in the first time, we proposed the first methodological proposal. This methodological proposal is organized in 2 principal steps. The first is the prioritization of error with the use of multi-criteria methods as HP sort 2. The second is the analysis of critical processes with the use of multi-objective portfolio selection. So for the first step, we use the analytic hierarchy process sort 2. This is a hierarchical method in which in the first level of the hierarchy there is the goal, in the second, third level there are the criteria and the sub-criteria, and in the fourth level there are the alternatives. For the analysis of the alternatives, the HP sort 2, a most important multivariate method, the representative profiles to solve the problem of the analysis of several alternatives in the problem. The representative profiles avoid to analyze to reduce the comparison between the alternatives. So in the last level of the hierarchy, there are the classes in which the alternatives are ordered with the use of the central profile or limiting profiles. For the application of and the tested of our methodology, we analyzed a matrix composed by 86 errors recorded during the period May 2019 and June 2020. And for our classification, we consider 4 criteria: frequency, cost, detection, and severity. So we constructed the central profiles with the help of the decision maker. We asked the decision maker to identify the profiles or limiting profiles. The central profiles are centroids, which represents numbers around which a criterion falls within that specific class. In this sense, we identify the central profiles for each criterion and for each class. We constructed accordingly Shizuka et al. The 6 representative profiles for each criterion considered for our analysis, and we identify the weights of the criteria. For the definition of the weights of criteria, we use the Simon-Roy-Figuera method. This method ordered ranking the criteria from the most important criteria to the least important criteria, and interpose between the criteria a set of blank cards. A blank card represents the distance in terms of importance between the criteria in the set considered. So in a slide, we ask the decision maker, we show the weights identified for each criterion by the decision maker. For the identification of the weights of the representative profile and central profiles, we use the pairwise comparison matrix. This is the most important method used in the analytic hierarchy process. And we, with the use of the Sati scale and the use of the gain value method, we identify the priorities of the representative and central profiles. At this point, we calculate the local priority with the use of the linear interpolation and with the use of the formula of the global priority in terms of sum of multiplication of the weights of the criteria respect to the local priority, we obtain the classification of the error from the most important, from the most to the least important one. At this point, we assigned the error to a class with the use of the closeness to the central profiles. In this way, we ordered the error from the low class to high class in order to gravity. So we compare the results with the priority index used by the company, and the most important results is that the error don't change the class, but change their position. For example, if you consider the error 44 with the company, the error is classifying the position 44 and in the class moderate, and with the application of the HP to the error change their position from 44 to 16, but the class is equal to the use of the method of the company. This change of position is identified by the construction of our method, because in our methodology we use the real data of the identified in the company, in particular for the criterion frequency. So at this point, we constructed the second step of our methodological proposal, the analysis of critical processes. We analyzed the tool used in the company, and the critical processes is identified as some of the errors in each process. We propose another innovative methodology, multi-objective portfolio decision analysis. This methodology, with this methodology, it's possible to consider in the construction of the model multiple evaluation criteria, a large number of the alternative, and cost and other relevant constraints for the construction of the model. So we structured the model after the identification, the prioritization of the error in cluster gravity. We identify the parameter F for each process and for each class. The parameter F defines how many errors have been in a process and belong to class of priority. And in the second time, we define the cost to solve the error in each process. And for our analysis, we consider 11 processes. At this point, we ask to the decision maker to identify three levels of thresholds. We ask the decision maker to identify when it's possible to define a process very good, moderately good, or good with the use of the threshold L for each class. In slide, we show only the two thresholds L1 and L2 because for the thresholds no good process, this option is never verified in the plan. In this sense, for our model, we use only the threshold L1 in which there are 0 error for high, medium, and low class, and the threshold L2 in which there are 5 high error, 2 medium error, and 1 low error. We constructed the table showing on the slide with the use of the parameter H for each threshold, for each process, and for each class sigma. The parameter H attributed 1 in the table if for a generic process the number of the error is measure of the number of the error for the threshold, and 0 otherwise. For example, if you consider the process 8, we attributed 1 in the table for high, medium, and low class because the number of the error for high, moderate, and low class is minor of the number of the error present in the threshold L1 for each class considered. We attributed 0 in high class for the threshold L2 for the process 8 because the number of the error present in high class for process 8 is minor of the the number of the error in high class for the threshold L2. So at this point, we constructed our portfolio. A portfolio is considered a set of processes in which there are a set of errors identified in high, moderate, and low errors. For our analysis, we identified a budget constraints. We defined 3 levels of budget at 18%, 50%, and 30% of the resources needed by the company to solve the error in the plant. So we structured our multi-objective portfolio problem with the use of the budget constraints. And in this slide, we show an example of a portfolio for each class, for each level of thresholds, and for the budget at 80%. And in table, we show the number of processes in each portfolio. We identify at this point the absence or presence of the process in each portfolio, and we show at the decision maker with the use of the visualization tool the portfolio for each budget considered. In this slide, we show only the portfolio chosen by the decision maker for each level of the budget. So the theoretical improvement of this methodology methodological proposal is that the combination of these methods is completely innovative for the scientific field and for the company. The definition of the thresholds imply the possibility for the decision makers to express their preferences and build to the optimization process from point of view. And the choice of interactive method allow to us to build on these preferences to fully justify the selection of the most critical portfolio of processes. For the company, the use of multi-criteria methods support the decision maker in sorting the error in class, high, medium, and low priority. And the use of the portfolio decision analysis allow to the decision maker to identify a set of critical processes in relation of the resources used for the solution of the error. We analyzed the problem from another point of view, and we propose another methodological proposal at the company. This methodological proposal is composed by 3 steps: the use of another multi-criteria methods for ranking the error, the classification of the error with a clustering techniques and not the identification of the central profiles by the decision maker, and an innovative validation of classification with Beto system. So in the first time we use the parsimonious HP, that is multi-criteria method used for solve the ranking problem, and the hierarchy is very similar to HP sort 2, but a difference of the HP sort 2, the reference level are chosen by the decision maker. The identification of the reference level by the decision maker have 3 principal advantages. The first is that we awareness pairwise comparison. The second is that we avoid the distortion of the comparison between the reference level and the alternative. And the third is that we avoid the rank reversal problem. This is a very important problem for example, for the classical analytic hierarchy process. So we analyze the historical data of the company. We ask the decision maker to identify the reference level for each criteria. We calculate the weights for the criteria and the reference level. And at this point, we identify the consistency of the judgment. We calculate the consistency ratio in relation of the consistency index respect to the random index, and if the consistency ratio is smaller or equal to 10%, in this case the inconsistency is acceptable. If the consistency ratio is greater than to 10%, in this case we need to revise the subjective judgment of the decision maker. In our case, the consistency ratio is smaller to 10%, and in this case the consistency is acceptable. So at this point, we calculate the local priority with the use of the linear interpolation, and as for HP sort 2, the global priority for ranking the errors. We identify at this point the classification of the error with the use of 2 different clustering techniques. In the first time, we use the kappa-means techniques that define the square distance between the centroid and the error in the class. The second, the kappa-means identify the square distance between the centroid and all the error in the class. And the goal of the kappa-means is to minimize the sum of square error over Ln classes. We use another clustering techniques, the hierarchical techniques, in terms of dissimilarity measures, and we use as dissimilarity measures the Euclidean distance. So we applied the kappa-means and the hierarchical techniques on each criterion and on the global priority, and for the application of our innovative validation of the classification. If the decision maker is not satisfied with the classification of the error in class with the use of the Beto system on the criterion, she can move the error from one class to another class. We define in the plant the veto rules system. For example, if you consider the first veto, if the error for the detection and severity criteria is classified in high or medium high class, then its final classification will be high or medium high. So in this slide, we show the classification of data obtained with the use of the hierarchical and kappa means techniques. For example, if you consider the low errors, we have in the classification of the global priority with the use of the hierarchical techniques 105 errors, and after the application of the veto rules system, we have 22 errors with the application of the hierarchical techniques. We show the percentage of movement from one class to another class. So this other methodological proposal have a different theoretical improvement. This method is new for scientific files and for the company. The classification of error on the basis of the similarities of their news thanks of the clustering approach and not based on the same reference level. And the decision maker can express as the veto some particular preferences on some particular criteria, allowing him to fully understand classification introducing them. So the strength for the company are the application of the parsimonious HP helped the interaction because the decision maker could easily understand the method. Trying two different clustering techniques helped the decision maker to comment into two initial different classification. And the veto system was very useful because of the closeness of what the companies does in their everyday approach. So we identified the perspective of this work. We would like to work on other step of error resolution process. For the analysis causes, we propose the combination of two different methods, the Bayesian networks and the cognitive reliability and error analysis method. And for the identification of a set of actions, we would like to use the dynamic multi-criteria method and the decision-making grid. And we would like to analyze the mathematical implementation of methodological tools with the use of the abelian linear ordering group of the pairwise comparison matrix of HP sort 2 and the parsimonious HP, the fuzzy logic of the sorting error in fuzzy classics, and we would like to use other model as a stochastic model for this typology of problem. In conclusion, with our methodological proposal, we improved the quality control processes by the use of innovative multi-criteria tools in combination of other several methods as the portfolio decision analysis of the clustering techniques. It's very important to define that it's possible to the extension of the prototype in further organizational processes and other contexts. For example, we say applied this model on the public administration, and in the last, we define the process innovation defines an improvement to all automotive sector. I finish the presentation. If the Professor Squillande would like to interview on the presentation.
Yes, thanks a lot, Gerarda. I think that you explained in a wide and a complete way the approach that you had in order to solve this kind of problems. I just have to stress that this method may be enlarged and may be applied also to some other situation. I wanted to, Peter, I have just 1 minute. Peter? I don't know if Peter.
I'm so sorry, my internet was.
I have 1 minute, just 1 minute.
It's all right. Your presentation is the final one. That's why you can continue speak, and we will ask a couple of questions, I guess.
Okay. Yes. You are Caterina. Hi.
Yes, it's me.
Ciao. Allora, and I wanted to stress that there is a wide range of domains where this method may be applied. I want to remember that one of the first application of AHP, analytical hierarchy process, was made by Thomas Saati just in Russia, in the Russian Republic during the period of Gorbachev, because he was one of the experts that was consulted by Gorbachev in order to apply the new politics like glasnost, for instance. And maybe it's of interest for you of this kind of aspect. And the originality of Gerarda is in the fact that she has, maybe it is the first time that it is applied to the automotive sector, and it was applied to an enterprise, a company that is the fourth in the world from the point of view of the production. And the originality is in the fact that she was able to combine different methods. And do you know that I think that the fusion of different expertise is the key in order to solve the problems. It is difficult in generally speaking in the science and also in the practical situation to solve a problem just by one tool. The key is to combine different tools and to stress the positive aspects of the different methods. And anyway, sorry, I think that there is anyway. Thanks a lot.
There are some questions in the chat. The first is, are these processes from a linear sequence or are they independent or parallel? Yes, for this question, I answer you. The process are a linear sequence. So the goal is to prevent the error occurs in other process. This is the first question. The second is, do you take into account the combination of particular errors? Say errors in two processes are independent and all low impact, but its combination in one production is of high impact. Yes, this is a very interesting question. We analyze the error in their constitution in the plant. We analyzed the error for each process, and we don't identify the error in each single process. So this is the next step of our analysis. We collaborated with the company to solve this typology of the problem and this typology of the this typology of analysis.
Yes,
sorry.
Gerard, I think that is valuable to stress that in the practical production, for instance, in the company that you know, there was a very rough way to, before of your analysis, a very rough way to analyze then the situation. For instance, one of the first steps of the Gerard's job was to select the errors that were truly of impact for the production, because then in the enterprise they were not aware of this level of importance. Then this is one of the, in my opinion, one of the most important results to classify the gravity of the errors, because it is important for the enterprise, also for, of course, for economical returns. I don't know if they are
I would add that there's a steady trend in Russia that we don't use only one approach to solve a difficult problem, but we try to consolidate different approaches, and that's why interdisciplinarity is very appreciated nowadays. And using fuzzy methods together with artificial intelligence and some strict classification, this I suppose something that is very fashionable nowadays.
Yes, and I agree with you, and I think that fuzziness is one of the tools that we have to introduce also in this kind of analysis. I am very interested in the field of fuzzy sets and the logics, and I have some results in this direction, because do you know Sugeno, Michele Sugeno? From anyway, I considered the Sugeno measures in order to appreciate and evaluate ambiguity. It is different from uncertainty. It is another kind of a problem that usually affect the real world. Okay, the ambiguity of the statement, it is different from uncertainty. Okay.
Thank you. So, any other questions? No questions. Okay, probably as a person whose duty was to cooperate with our international community, and my duty also was to prepare the proceedings for Springer publication. So I want to thank everybody who has come here today, and I want to thank and tell my appreciation to our keynote presenters today. Well, you've done a great job. Thank you very much. And I suppose we have proved our initial idea that interdisciplinarity is a very steady trend nowadays, and we can't do without it. And it's very important to continue this cooperation in the future. Thank you.
Thank you a lot.
Thanks, Katerina.
So if someone has forgotten or was very shy to ask a question to any of our today's speakers, you're welcome to address them to our Perm Forum email, or maybe who has my email, you can address it to me and I will forward the questions to our presenters. Okay, probably at this point we will declare our today's plenary session closed. Thank you for coming and goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks for coming, guys. Bye. Bye.
Bye.